Does it feel like your finances are all over the place? You don't need a 100-page financial plan or budgeting app. You need someone to talk to who gets you, your money, and your mindset. Your Fruitful guide maps out where every dollar should go. Bills, spending, saving, investing, then sets it all up for you. Accounts, priorities, transfers, paycheck splits, done. Just press go and your money runs itself. Get your money mapped and learn more at Fruitful.com.
Looking for a simple way to thank your clients or recognize employees for a job well done? A Starbucks card is more than a gift. It's a pick-me-up, a break in their day, and a reminder that you appreciate them. Whether you're shopping for digital or physical cards in bulk, Starbucks cards are the perfect gift to brighten anyone's day. Share the joy of coffee and connection when you give the gift of Starbucks. Shop Starbucks cards in bulk now at starbuckscardb2b.com.
Experience a membership that backs your business journey with American Express Business Platinum. Earn 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy a welcome offer of 200,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Welcome to No Question About That Daily, today with Dominic Booth. How's it going?
Yes, good, thank you, Edward. How are you?
Edward. How very formal.
I don't know why I went with Edward, but you went with Dominic Booth, so I thought I'd full name you back.
Yeah. My name is Edward Bestlaw Charlton Cantona. No, it's not. Yeah, that'd be good though.
I'd love that if that was my son's name, but yeah, I didn't have the balls to do it.
I tried convincing, but yeah, it didn't work at all. All right, we're going to talk about the transfer window that has just closed, what United did, what they didn't do, where it leaves us, and perhaps some insight into the strategy the club is pursuing right now and where we are vis-a-vis PSR, transfer budget, wages, and so on. So, initial reactions to the window, and we just talked about this a little off air. I guess there's a general sense of feeling fairly deflated about this one amongst the fan base. Have I caught the mood right?
Yeah, I felt really flat. And I know there's so many different strands and layers to this, and PSR regulations, which we'll get into, I'm sure, later in the podcast. But to see United being left behind by their rivals, and even clubs that really should not be considered our rivals, that we ought to be considered bigger and better than, such as your Villas and your Tottenhams, those clubs doing big deals on deadline day and obviously strengthening in areas that United need to strengthen, and seeing United do nothing, Patrick Dorgu aside, was really galling. I know you can maybe point to Aiden Heaven from Arsenal, 18-year-old, Diego Leon, Paraguayan left back. We don't know anything about them really, other than they have some potential. We don't know that much about Patrick Dorgu, as we discussed in a previous podcast. That was pretty much all we know that we put into that podcast. It's just, it feels like United are really accepting their fate this season, accepting that this is going to take a lot of time, which is one thing that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos said that they wouldn't, right? They actually said that they wanted to sort this thing in a couple of years. So
yes,
it doesn't feel that way from this business.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't feel that way, except if you take the kind of long view that by sorting out the club's wage structure and transfer strategy, that it supports a long-term view of development towards 2028. I mean, it seems like a real stretch to get to 2028 and win the Premier League, which is what has been promised. So what did we do this winter? It was 3 in, 3 out by the looks of it. Although, I mean, I think that's a bit of a stretch, really. So it's Patrick Dorgu, who we spoke about. Go check out our pod on him if you want more details. It's Aiden Heaven, who's had 1 substitute appearance for Arsenal in the EFL Cup. Generally speaking, was in his under-21s, in the Arsenal's under-21s. And Diego Leon, who is coming from Paraguay. He can't move until the summer because he's not 18 yet. And so let's make the assumption that he's actually not going straight into the first team squad. So those are the deals in. And then deals out, obviously, Marcus Rashford to Villa on loan with an option. Anthony on what they call a dry loan these days. We had to learn a new terminology. just a straight loan to Betis, and Tyrone Malacia a straight loan to PSV. So that's what they've done. What does it say about the future? I mean, I think it says United are trying to restructure the wages. They couldn't get Casemiro out. They would have loved to have done that. They're probably looking at, as we've mentioned before, that top 10 wage earners at United, and I think only 3 of them were regulars in the first team and not producing. And so Jim is a old private equity guy who is probably looking at value and going, well, that's no good. That's not value. And I think that drives some of it, as well as what the coach wants and needs. I agree with you on the general feeling of flatness. I mean, we're looking at this season. You can't save the league season, I don't think. I mean, even if United put in a good performance in the next 4 months, it's going to be halfway up or down the league table, depending on your perspective. But it's the Europa League everyone's looking at going. That is a backdoor into the Champions League and £100 million worth of revenue.
And it could be truly transformative if United did win the Europa League. I mean, it would do what for Amorim, what the FA Cup did for Ten Hag, give him that stay of execution, give him that validation. I know everyone had
and revenue, and
that for the club as well. Yeah, the club itself, it would bring United back towards those clubs that I mentioned that they now seem to be way behind in terms of what they can do in the transfer market. And Villa are taking the piss, really, in blunt terms. That Rashford loan, I know they're covering 70% of his wages. I just don't see the point in some of those loans. I know that they help the books a little bit, and then you'll probably tell people how much exactly they bring or take off the wage bill. But Anthony, Rashford, and Malacia all going out on loan. United not generating a fee for any of them. It remains to be seen whether that 40 million option for Rashford is activated. He's going to have to do bits for them for that to be activated, and he hasn't looked like playing that way for 2.5 years. Let's see. I just don't see the point in all 3 of those deals. I think United have weakened themselves in the transfer market, and they haven't significantly strengthened their finances to balance it. On the other hand, and that's why it leaves fans feeling flat, because if United had generated a 40-50 million pound sale of somebody like Rashford or Casemiro that clearly wanted out and United wanted out, it would feel like a boost, and it would feel like that is money, to real serious money to put back into the coffers, and to give Amorim what he wants and what he needs. To give Amorim one player who is an unproven 20-year-old left wing back just feels like it's not enough.
Yeah, I think that's why fans are feeling flat, because it feels like we're actually weaker this side of January than we were going into it. I mean, Dorgu remains to be seen whether he can hit the ground running or not. It's a big ask, really big ask, even if he's super talented. The financial position, as you asked, and I think we should go through and rate all 6 deals in some fashion, but the financial aspects are very marginal. And this is the Ineos strategy overall. It's little gains either on the revenue side or the cost side, little by little. And it feels not very much compared to the 21 million they spent in sacking Ten Hag and bringing Amorim in. So United will get about £4 million in saved wages with Rashford, something like that, for a bit. Obviously, there's that £40 million option that may or may not be executed if you're Villa, even with their wealthy owners and Champions League revenue. You'll be looking at as a massive package to cover his wages, and that £40 million fee is a hell of a commitment for a player who's 27. So, yeah, you're right about that one. And then Anthony going out is about €1.5 million. So let's just touch over £1 million saved. I mean, he wasn't contributing much, but for £1 million,
a drop in the ocean, isn't it, in comparison to the transfer fee United paid for him and
exactly
and everything else?
Well, I've said this before, but when you take the PSR cost, right? So people look at the 95 million euros, 85 million pounds up front, and they're just thinking about that. But break that down over 5 years. That's the amortization cost that United are paying. PSR is calculated on a rolling 3-year basis, right? So your current financial year and the 2 previous all combined. You're allowed to lose 105 million, of which 90 can be owner funding per season. That's it. We've hit that cap already, by the way, this year. And so the amortization on Anti's transfer fee is what, 12 and a bit? No, way more than that. 15 million pounds, right? So that's a £7.5 million cost for this half of the season, let's say, around about. Betis are not paying that. We are paying that. And that means we are subsidising Betis to the tune of £7.5 million. I know people don't think about it like that, but that's basically what we're doing. We're paying them to play our player in amortization, sure, not cash, but it matters. And we're weaker, maybe marginally weaker given his performances, but we're weaker as a result. And Rashford, well, there's no PSR cost because he's an academy product, so zero value on the books. And so it makes the calculations different. It's £4.5 million into our wallet that we don't have. And I suppose that's a gain if he wasn't going to play under Amorim for various reasons, some of which are true and some of which are not. If you see on social media, and please, people, will you stop DMing me, telling me he's on the pills or he has £10 million of gambling debts or is in with the mafia or whatever crap that's coming into my... So, yeah, those are the financial positions. All right, let's go through each of the transfers and let's weigh them up. Rashford to Villa, that's the big one. I mean, Villa are able to do this because they had Champions League money. They're in the last 16. They know they're going to get a pretty big windfall as a result. They don't know who they're playing next. And they sold John Duran. So there's space in the squad. And this is a dry loan with an option, right? So no fee. 70% of his wages could go up to 90 if they qualify for the Champions League again. And they would probably say that paying £4.5 million in wages, if he scores the goals that gets them into the Champions League, is worth it.
Yeah, and the money they got for John Duran
was mega.
They reinvested it. Yeah, it's massive money. It's a really clever sale that they've sold a player who people want to buy. He's an age and a profile that clubs are interested in. I'm surprised that he's gone to Saudi Arabia because I thought that there could have been clubs in Europe interested in him because I think he's a good player and that he's got big potential.
$20 million, I think they quoted it in $20 million, or is it euros? I can't remember. It's about the same anyway. That's about 1-to-1. $20 million a year, tax free. I mean, that's transformational money for him. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But in terms of the kind of player that he is, he's the kind of player that United don't have to sell or aren't willing to or whatever. United aren't selling players like that.
We only had Garnacho. That was it.
And nobody wanted United to sell Garnacho because he's way down the list, right? There was Anthony and there was Rashford in terms of forwards that United should and wanted to have got rid of in the January window. And then Garnacho and Maino were way down that list. And I think that there honestly would have been riots if United had sold those two. And there even was a big backlash to the fact they were considering it. The point is, I've gone way off topic there. The point is that Villa have sold a player that they've got good money for and they've done some smart business. And United have done the exact opposite and they've got rid of players and got basically no money to reinvest. And they made a rod for their own back by basically saying out loud and telling the whole world, we want to get rid of these players. And Rashford was one of those. I don't think that it all came from Amorim. I think that the club had a chat with Amorim and they came to the conclusion that Rashford was one of those players that they should deem surplus to requirements. And Amorim was happy to go along with that for various reasons.
There are two very good detailed pieces which, as I understand it, are reasonably correct with Laurie Whitwell on the Manchester side of things, and the BBC also did a similar thing looking into it. So I think those are all correct. So there's one, Amorim's doubts about the player. Obviously, he keeps voicing it in general terms. He hasn't been specific about what he requires in training. There was also apparently the data he had already acquired on Rashford before he came to the club that showed pressing intensity and number of runs and stuff like that. Won't be a surprise to anyone. And then Laurie Whitwell reported that Rashford had been out before the Everton game, in which he scored twice, but had been out drinking on the Friday night. Add that to Belfast last year when he got shit-faced for 3 days and lied to the club about it. And you have a picture of, you can understand why there'd be questions. Rashford and his people obviously let it be known to various media outlets that they feel he has been treated harshly compared to other Premier League players who also have a social life as well. So we'll just leave that out there. You can, I guess, pick your side on that one, whatever.
There is something to be said for that as well. There is something to be said for that because players are allowed to have lives.
We are allowed to have lives, and the coach is also allowed to say, hey, I want this player, I don't want this player. And it's kind of, you're in a very invidious position if you say to a new coach, nah, you can't get to decide that. So the club are right to decide, and it's okay, right? Players leave Manchester United and the club moves on. I find it personally sad because I find him an admirable person who's used his platform for good and has come through the academy, and that is deeply ingrained into the Manchester United DNA, whatever that is. I find him personally someone to admire, and his journey from kid in a poor neighbourhood of Manchester to being a star for the club and scoring nearly 150 goals is a miracle, right? That just does not happen very often. Right throughout the history of this club, or just the fact that 1 in 1,000 make it to an academy and 70% of those players make it into a Premier League academy, never play professional football, right? So it's a very long journey to get there, and he did remarkably well, and something has changed both in him as a player and maybe a person over the last, 18 months, 2 years, really. It's been poor form. I mean, he's amazing in the first half and the winter of that 22-23 season, and it's just kind of dropped off. I know what it is, whether it's the social stuff or distractions or his entourage or physical, something has happened to him. And if the coach says he doesn't want him, and the hierarchy are making marginal gains on the finances, they will look at his large contract, second or third best paid player at the club, and go, that's not value for money. Let's see whether someone else would like to take him off our hands, right? I think that's basically what's happened.
Yeah, and you painted the two contrasting sides of the argument very well there, the brutal finances and the emotion. But football is about the emotion, and it's about the connection with the players, and that's why it is sad. Rashford represented something that United have very little of now in the squad. And it's basically all on you now, Cobby, please, to represent Manchester, to be that hometown boy. And will he have a chant that goes for him like Rashford did? Rashford's chant mentioned that he was Manchester born and bred, from Wythenshawe, born to fight, and all that stuff. And that actually means something. So it's hard, right? And I found it sad. I was watching Rashford's old goals on repeat on the day that he went to Villa, because I just wanted to remember those moments, and they were significant. The
big moments.
The goals against Liverpool and City, and the contributions to United winning trophies. Even that pass in the FA Cup final last year, it's not a very typical Rashford thing to do, but it was a hell of a ball, and it was a massive moment and a massive game. Rashford did turn up for it.
Yeah.
So,
and we'll always have Paris, which was just an incredible moment.
Paris was unbelievable. Yeah,
unbelievable.
I mean, me and my mates were on a stag do, or my stag do actually, in February 2023. I got married in April, and every picture of us on that stag do, we're doing the Rashford finger to head, because he was on the absolute hot streak. We're all big United fans, and Rashford resonated with us in a way that other players in that team didn't at the time, and who will resonate the same way that Rashford did to Mancunian United fans.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the emotion, and I think the top red sentiment, if that is a thing, is club first, club above everything, right? And that's the way of framing it. And then anyone who appears to go against the club in some way is persona non grata. And there certainly is a narrative that goes, he said he wanted out. Now, I would counter that and say the club let it be known to both media, i.e. that Guardian article with Jamie Jackson, in which Jamie has said was a senior Manchester United executive, told him United had put him up for sale effectively and put a price of 40 million on him at that time. And I think it's well known throughout the industry that he was, through intermediaries and Rashford's representatives as well, he was being hawked around the country and Europe for sale, right? So I think the evidence is quite strong that his club made this decision first. Rashford then spoke to Winter at that school event, which had been postponed from the week before, and said, if there's a new challenge, I'm up for it. He didn't say I want out, but it's certainly been interpreted that way by some people. So I think it's kind of important to clear up the timeline of what happened. So the narrative that he said he's wanted out, therefore he is trash, I don't think that stacks up. And just to round out my thought is, I don't think that stacks up in terms of the narrative, but also it's okay to say he's not been playing well and he's on a massive wage, and you have to make that calculation, and Amorim doesn't want him. And so the right thing to do, if all those things, you toss them up, is to make a sale. Dominic.
That's the thing, yeah. And the club can be, you can agree with the club in what they've done because Rashford hasn't pulled his weight and he has been poor and his attitude hasn't looked right on the pitch. I don't know exactly what's gone on behind the scenes, but there's something has looked wrong on the pitch with the way he's running around and pressing or not doing those things. But you can still have that emotion and think that it's a shame that it came to this. And I'm sure Rashford thinks that it's a shame that it came to that. I'm sure most people at United who he's worked closely with think that, and the fans do as well. But you can think all of that and think, well, the club need to march on. And Amorim, you can back Amorim as well. And the fans are backing Amorim really strongly at the moment, which I like. I think it's a really good sign. And the club are trying to do so as well with decisions like that. It's just a shame that the money generated isn't very much from that deal. It just feels like we're giving Aston Villa one of United's best players over the last decade for very little money.
Yeah, that is very true. And what we need now, and again, going counter to some of the online sentiment, we need Rashford to score loads and loads of goals for Villa. Like loads. We need him to be in
I don't want to see that.
I don't want to see it either, right? I don't want to see it. Not because I hate Rashford and I want him to fail. I want him in the United shirt scoring goals. If that's not going to happen, he's going elsewhere. I mean, it feels weird to say it. A rival club. They're obviously a better team than us on the pitch right now. Not in status of clubs, of course. Villa they've won the European Cup. It's an old historic club, but they're only 5 years back in the Premier League since being relegated, right? So, but it'll be best for United because Villa will take up that option. If they don't take up that option, there'll be more of a market if Rashford shows he's fit and able to, and has the hunger and can still do it at elite levels. If he can't, if it's a disaster, if he doesn't play very well, if he's dropped by the manager, if there are more stories about him going out in the bull ring, can you go out in the bull ring? And
do you want to?
Yeah. No. And aside, for people who don't know Birmingham, it was bombed during the Second World War. So the whole of Birmingham city centre was like basically ugly concrete, which they demolished about, 10 years ago. And in its place, put up a giant shopping centre. So the centre of Birmingham is just one shopping centre now. Very weird. Very weird.
The only times I go to Birmingham is to watch football or cricket.
Edgbaston in the south of Birmingham, and the football's north and east, I think, something like that. Anyway, if he doesn't do well, United end up with a player back, not wanted by Amorim. The club has clearly decided he will never play for the club again. And then you've got very little market, as we saw this winter when deals with Borussia Dortmund, Milan and Barcelona didn't happen, basically because of finances and an agreement about what level they would pay of Rashford's wages. And to then get him out in the summer after a failed loan is going to be really, really, really hard, right? So as much it might go counter to some of the online narrative, you want him to do well now, very well. And because he's not going to play for the club again, that's been decided, I think that's
yeah.
All right. Anything more to say on Rashford? Shall we rate the others quickly? All right. Anthony going out. I mean, United needs to get rid, but as we've said, and God, that sounds really mean. I don't particularly have anything against Anthony unless those stories in Brazil were actually true and they were grim, really grim. And then, set fire to the guy if that was true. United are just chucking money away. I mean, I guess they see that they're chucking slightly less money away than they were before. That's it.
It just feels like Anthony and Rashford, everyone accepted that they've probably come to the end of the road with United, and Amorim, neither seem to fit into Amorim's system, yada, yada, yada. But what's the point in letting both of them go when the current options now at the end of the window are so threadbare? And that's the thing with Anthony. Nobody really thought, Anthony should stay and he can score 5 or 10 goals between now and the end of the season. Nobody thinks that because there's no evidence to back it up. But Xerxes, Højlund, Ahmad and Garnacho, that is it in terms of forwards. If you don't include Bruno, he's playing deeper now. We're playing Kobbie Mainoo as a number 9. And we're playing that because there's nobody else. And it's just a complete send up the flag and surrender on the league season and abandon ship. That just doesn't feel like anything that United should ever be doing. United have never done that, no matter how bad things have been. And that's unprecedented.
2017, Mourinho played a bunch of second string sides in the league right at the end of the season to get his team ready for the Europa League final. That was as close as we've got to giving up on the league in order to do well in something else. That's not
Still
giving up
finished
on.
sixth though.
Still finished sixth and won the Europa League and got into the Champions League as a result, right? And everyone is in Stockholm. I was there. I had a brilliant time. It was fantastic, right? One of the highlights of the last 10 years, and there haven't been very many of them, right? So, yeah, almost done. But yeah, giving up on this season is a bitter pill to swallow. I think the spin is basically in order to get us ready for the summer and the finances ready. But the reality is, to get us ready is we need Anthony to be sold. And he has, as I mentioned earlier, this massive PSR charge every year. So we're going to have to sell him for about 30 million in order to break even, not get an impairment charge, right? And that is unlikely to happen. So the likelihood is we're just hoping for the least worst bad scenario with him. It's desperately bad. Yeah, desperately bad.
What is the likelihood of Anthony, Sancho, and Rashford all coming back and being resold for fees that United deem acceptable?
Rashford, possibly. Anthony, you'd had to have a brilliant time at Betis in order for us to get anywhere near that what's left in terms of his book value. Sancho, there's the obligation with Chelsea. I think they only have to finish above 14th, which is going to happen. So that'll trigger that one. I think there were extra bonuses depending on how high they finish up the league. So he's gone. He's not coming back to United. I don't think it would take Chelsea losing almost every game they've got this season for that to happen.
United are still going to make a loss on that, aren't they?
Yeah,
compared to what they paid.
Yeah. It's they make a big cash loss and a minor book value. About break even on book value. And so, yeah, I think they've accepted that one. And the last one out is Tyrell Malacia. He came in on such a cheap deal that it was a very low risk. He goes to PSV, he gets fit. If you can sell him anywhere above £3 million, it'll be a break even on the book value, so it's fine. And
that
he
one
just
is fine.
He just needs football, right? He just needs football,
Yeah.
and they'll find a market for him somewhere.
And Dorgu is a direct replacement, isn't he? That fits the system and that Amarin seemingly wants. So no complaints on that front.
Yeah, no complaints. And then the other two come in. Aidan Heaven, I've never seen him play. I don't know if you have. Left-sided central defender. I mean, I've seen the reports and the YouTube comps. There aren't many on him, obviously. And the one analysis video. It seems like Arsenal are now our feeder club for young players. So we just keep stealing them off them.
Well, let's get excited about him because he's a left-footed young centre-back and there's very little else to get excited about. It looks like he could actually be a decent fit on the left side of the 3 in Amarin system and actually might be really needed now that Lisandro Martinez looks like he's out for a long time. I don't expect Aidan Heaven to go straight in, but he has got half a chance.
Well, it's opened up for him. I was kind of surprised they presented him as a new first-team player. I mean, he's 2 years older than Martin, who we also stole off Arsenal. And so I guess 2 years closer to first-team football. But just that one substitute EFL appearance. I can't remember, he played like 20 minutes or something. So didn't look like he was close to the Arsenal first team. Obviously, they've got quite a lot of strength in central defensive positions, Arsenal. So maybe that comes into the calculus somewhat for him personally. But now, yes, as you say, with Lisandro Martinez injured, he's got a pathway to playing. We'll find out how close he is, won't we?
Yeah, and maybe if United are writing off this season, then it's players like that who we should be seeing in the first team. I mean, some people like to pull this plug and say, play the kids. United in 12, 13, play the kids. But you can't play the kids for 3 or 4 months.
No.
Because United could genuinely get relegated and the kids will be damaged and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You have to try and win league games.
There is this kind of calculus and narrative and argument that has been put forward that says, United are writing off this league season because it's cheaper. It's a way of getting all the players out, especially if we're not in the Champions League. They don't get that Champions League bonus and fine, but the revenue from doing well and getting in the Champions League it outweighs the cost of paying players bonuses quite significantly. And so I don't really buy the narrative that they're going, okay, we're just going to write it all off. We take the risk that we're probably not going to get relegated. We're 10 points above the relegation zone. It would have to be absolutely catastrophic for us to be caught by 2 of Wolves, Ipswich and Leicester. Seems very, very unlikely. And so the worst case scenario can't happen. It's just the upside. Like, we're not going to score goals. We're not suddenly going to score loads of goals in this second half of the season. It's not going to suddenly, the tap turns on. Now we've binned off Rashford. Everyone is like, woohoo, he's gone. We're going to start scoring for fun. Doesn't work like that. Not going to happen. And so if we somehow make it far in Europa League and there's a really crucial game in the later stage of the knockout or in the final in Bilbao and we can't score a goal and lose and don't get in the Champions League, it's £100 million decision.
Yeah. And what happens if Ahmad gets injured, say? What happens if Bruno gets injured?
It's worst case scenario.
What happens if we never see Mason Mount again? And that seems like is a half chance given how many games he misses. I mean, there's ever a time for him to get fit again. You can walk back into this team, mate. You know, you are very much needed. And when he's fit, Mason Mount is a good player. I maintain it. I've been saying it for almost 2 years. I just wish that we saw it at some point. And I bet Amorim is crying out for it on the current squad, the state of it.
Sometimes that theory, you have to say it's just a theory, right? After 2 years.
Maybe I should give up on it, yeah.
You might need to, and it just get a surprise bonus at some point. All right, we'll leave it there. That's a wrap up of the transfer window. It's mediocre. I mean, I guess we can see the bigger picture. They're trying to restructure the costs, but it's the summer that really matters. If they cannot get the big earners off the books and get some decent fees, the club will not be able to spend the kind of money we want in order to restructure the squad in the way that Amorim wants. That's the big picture. There's a lot of risks, though, and we're getting a downside right now as a result.
Trust the process.
Okay. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, listeners.
Cheers.
Viewers. Bye now.